A grand, ornate building basks under a sky filled with drifting petals, setting a solemn and majestic atmosphere. Inside, glowing hands hover over a radiant orb resting on an intricately designed pedestal, while two robed women stand quietly nearby. Within a vast hall, a voice declares that the suitable profession for the current individual is soldier, prompting the next person to step forward. A young woman eagerly responds with enthusiasm, ready for her turn. Attention shifts to a young man named Chris Sparring, recognized as the twin son of a renowned family, as whispers among onlookers speculate about his destined profession. Despite the anticipation, he appears tense and uncertain. The scene is marked by the tidal ritual of heavenly grace. An explanation unfolds about the kingdom of Meldrake, where every 16-year-old undergoes a ritual revealing their ideal profession and associated skills, ranging from combat roles like warriors and wizards to non-combat positions such as merchants and farmers. Those with high-class professions receive special treatment from the country, making the ritual a pivotal life event, though it hints at a contrasting reality yet to be revealed. Memories flash of a stern father imposing rigorous training on his son from an early age, demanding he surpass him as the next family head. The young man feels the crushing weight of these expectations and vows not to be ridiculed during the ritual. As the ceremony continues, the announcer calls for the next participant to step forward, and the young man named Chris Sparring approaches solemnly, awaiting the revelation of his destined career. A radiant light fills the grand hall as the proclamation echoes. His suitable career is revealed as farmer, accompanied by the skill of poison resistance, casting a heavy silence over the room. Shock ripples through the crowd, with murmurs of disbelief and confusion as everyone processes the unexpected result. Chris himself is stunned, unable to hide his dismay, while a voice loudly questions the decision, incredulous that he would be assigned such a humble profession. Despite the shock, a kind figure named Klaus steps forward with a warm smile, encouraging Chris to stay positive and cheer up, while two women nearby comment on Klaus's gentle nature and speculate that Chris's older brother must be deeply concerned about his own profession. A heavy breath escapes as a hand clenches tightly, while a young man reflects on his relentless efforts up to this day, questioning the purpose behind all his hard work. The crowd buzzes with excitement and awe as a young man proudly reveals he has just acquired the legendary Holy Sword, a rare honor only bestowed 5 times since the first hero, leaving onlookers both impressed and intimidated. The young man beams confidently, waving to the crowd as petals drift around him, his presence commanding admiration and respect from those gathered in the grand hall. Outside the majestic building, an older man with a beard praises the young man named Klaus for his performance, urging him to become a strong leader like his father before him, while Klaus quietly acknowledges the encouragement, calling out to his father as the scene closes. A dark aura surrounds the young man as an older man with a stern expression yells at him, accusing him of being a farmer despite years of teaching and care, demanding he leave and condemning his emotionless demeanor. The young man recalls a harsh day filled with relentless sparring practice, bare-handed fights, and constant scolding, now preparing to leave with only a small bag in hand, burdened by the weight of his failures. As he quietly walks away, a concerned figure calls out to him, asking why he is leaving without a word, while the departing youth reflects on having saved their family's reputation but feeling abandoned now. The young man looks back with a heavy heart, silently addressing his older brother, acknowledging the sacrifices made for the family's honor even as he steps into an uncertain future alone. The young man stands silently, overshadowed by a haunting image of another figure laughing cruelly, his hand covering his mouth in mockery. He faces a man who arrogantly questions why he can't even offer thanks. The young man, sweating and tense, demands why he is being mocked despite never having spoken to the other before. A flashback reveals that since childhood, Klaus was frail and cared for by their mother and a doctor. While the young man endured strict training from their father, Klaus gradually recovered by age 5 and lived normally, never subjected to the harsh discipline the other endured. Walking through a garden, the young man reflects on how Klaus seems to dislike him, ignoring all attempts at conversation, leaving them without a proper exchange until now. Suddenly, the other bursts into mocking laughter, taunting him for not understanding the reason behind the disdain. The young man bitterly recalls being the one abandoned by their father, resenting that Klaus, born just 10 minutes earlier and raised with care, could never truly understand his pain. He wonders why Klaus hates him, considering that maybe Klaus has his own feelings, but the thought is overshadowed by a dark presence looming behind a woman, leaving him unsettled and alone. A cruel laugh echoes as a young boy smiles warmly in a memory, surrounded by flowers, while a shadowy figure clenches his chest in anguish, admitting that if anyone wanted change most, it was himself. The young man confronts another, who boasts arrogantly about receiving the holy sword from God, mocking him for being a mere farmer. Enraged, the youth snaps back with a fierce demand for silence. Tension escalates as the man with the holy sword points it threateningly at the other, warning him not to get angry or risk death here, his smile twisted with menace. The farmer grips his sword tightly, breathing heavily but determined, as the other taunts him about daring to fight the holy sword. With a confident grin, the farmer declares he is ready to face the challenge anytime. The young man exhales with a weary smile as he blocks a sword strike, reflecting on the relentless, rigorous training he has endured since childhood, accepting that despite his efforts, his fate as a farmer is inevitable. Suddenly, he shouts that the fight is far from over, stepping forward with determination, while the other figure remains calm and distant, declaring disinterest in the weak and signaling the conflict is settled. Flames erupt around the man wielding the holy sword as he threatens his opponent with a chilling promise to kill, his sinister smile contrasting sharply with the shocked and fearful expression of the other youth. With a fierce cry, the young man launches a powerful attack named Sacred Slash, shattering the sword of his adversary, who watches in stunned silence as the clash intensifies. A massive explosion rocks the ground, sending debris flying as the young man narrowly avoids a devastating attack, landing amidst rubble with a grim expression, realizing he has just missed the strike. Catching his breath, he admits to having overexerted himself, his eyes widening in shock as he contemplates the situation. The shattered remains of a sword lying before him symbolizing his failure despite his efforts. The man wielding the sword smiles coldly, standing over his fallen opponent, asserting that no matter how hard the youth tries, his swordsmanship will never measure up in front of the best profession, emphasizing the vast power gap between them. A massive explosion tears through the forest, sending debris flying as a figure stands defiantly with a sword in hand, declaring that he has been made a fool once more. The figure, breathing heavily and tense, calls out for someone named Chris to come back, his voice filled with desperation and anger as the forest around him bears the scars of their fierce battle. The scene shifts to a quiet, expansive view of the forest under a cloudy sky, the peacefulness contrasting sharply with the recent violence, as leaves flutter gently through the trees. The young man, exhausted and panting, walks cautiously through the dense forest, his expression weary but determined as he navigates the quiet wilderness alone. The young man stands silently by the edge of a calm forest pond, the dense trees casting shadows around him as he kneels down, catching his breath and wincing slightly from exhaustion. He sits against a tree, reflecting on his narrow escape and the danger still looming, his face darkening with worry as he recalls how seriously his pursuer intended to kill him. Holding the last remnants of his supplies tightly, he decides to hide deeper in the forest, acknowledging his injuries prevent him from hunting for food and realizing he must conserve his strength. Venturing further into the woods, he notes the unusual silence and absence of any animals or monsters, recalling past hunts with his father but recognizing this part of the forest is unfamiliar and foreboding. He finds a simple cave, roughly cleaned to serve as shelter, grateful to be protected from rain and wind. Standing at the entrance, he resolves to wait out the time, though eating a bug remains his last resort. A close-up reveals the bug crawling nearby, emphasizing his desperation. Emerging from the cave, he acknowledges the need to eat despite his reluctance. Sitting among strange plants, he reflects on his toxic resistance skill, which should prevent death regardless of what he consumes. A skill he never expected to use but now finds helpful. He cautiously bites into a leaf. Tasting the plants, he notes the leaves are slightly sweet while the flowers are bitter and disgusting. Despite the unpleasant flavors, he continues to eat, admitting the bitterness and astringency only make him feel more tired as night falls over the forest. Surveying various bizarre plants and fruits, he explains that the more unusual their appearance, the easier they are to eat and less bitter. He identifies the Manga as an exception to this rule, contemplating the strange flora surrounding him under the darkening sky. The young man kneels beside a muddy puddle, frustration evident as he admits this is all the water he could find. His face shadowed with worry over the pressing need for drinking water, he reflects on his mistake of venturing too deep into the forest, losing his way and forgetting the path back to the stream, though he still hopes to return to it despite the hours it might take. Holding the murky water in his hands, he reminds himself of his toxic resistance skill that protects his body from harm. Yet the urgency of dehydration presses on him as he drinks, sweat beading on his forehead. He wipes his face with the grimy liquid, grimacing at the bitter taste but knowing he must drink to survive. The bitter, foreign sensation of the water hits him hard, causing him to gag as he struggles with the unpleasant flavor. He laments the lack of decent drinking water and food in the forest, the night deepening around him under the full moon's glow. Exhausted, he lies down inside the cave, the shadows enveloping him as he battles hunger and thirst. Suddenly, a sinister smile breaks the tense silence as a shadowed figure confronts the young man, who barely manages to dodge a swift, powerful sword strike, the clash marking the continuation of a dangerous encounter deep in the forest. The young man suddenly jolts awake inside a rough cave, his eyes wide with shock as he quickly sits up, the dim light casting long shadows on the rocky walls. Outside, the dense forest canopy looms quietly under the fading light, while he reaches down to grab a large, striped insect from the grass nearby. He then sits by a small campfire inside the cave, carefully roasting the insect on a stick as rain begins to fall outside, the shelter providing a brief refuge from the storm. Days have passed since he entered the Peisha forest, and relief floods him as he finally spots a large piece of meat resting on leaves, declaring it a precious find despite its origin. He watches cautiously as a wild animal roams nearby, noting this is the first time he has encountered an animal in the forest, even if it is only a corpse. Though the meat is rotten and its smell overwhelming, he convinces himself that grilling it with rosemary will improve the taste, determined to make the best of his scarce resources. Flames flicker gently as the meat cooks over the fire, the young man's expression serious as he prepares his meal with care. Taking a bite, he grimaces at the unpleasant flavor, admitting it is the worst meat he has ever tasted. Yet for someone who has survived on plants and insects for days, it feels like a feast. He devours the grilled meat hungrily by the fire, savoring the rare fullness in his stomach as the forest night envelopes him in quiet solitude. The young man notes the forest isn't dangerous but lacks living creatures, making food scarce. His leg wound has nearly healed, likely due to herbs in his diet. Determined, he decides to hunt more animals and monsters despite only hearing birds. Suddenly, a rustling sound catches his attention. He spots traces in the grass and footprints, sensing the faint smell of beasts nearby. He cautiously hides behind a tree, preparing for whatever approaches. Peering from his cover, he sees a figure in the distance and realizes with shock that it is someone, or something, approaching. The figure reveals itself as a large orc wielding a massive club, its fierce presence warning that the young man must attack or be attacked. A large orc stands in the forest, exhaling smoke from his nostrils, his muscular frame and fierce expression marking him as a formidable foe. The young man recalls only seeing orcs once before, remembering how difficult it was for his father to handle them without using any skills. The young man assesses the orc's strength, noting that if this orc matches the level of the one his father faced, their abilities are likely comparable. He grips his makeshift axe tightly, aware that fighting with it is extremely dangerous. Despite this, his hunger drives him to leap toward the orc, shouting his desperate desire to eat meat. The orc swiftly reacts, dodging the young man's attack with ease as the youth's expression tightens with determination and anxiety. The orc's imposing presence looms as the young man struggles to land a blow, sweat beading on his face as he faces the overwhelming challenge. The orc stands tall and resolute in the forest, clutching a large club, his gaze fixed forward with unwavering confidence as the surrounding trees cast shadows around him. The young man grips his makeshift axe tightly, eyes scanning the dense forest as he cautiously moves forward, the thick canopy casting dappled shadows around him. Suddenly, a massive club crashes down with tremendous force, shattering the ground near him, while the orc stands nearby, watching intently as the young man notes relief that the creature hasn't fled. The orc roars fiercely, lunging forward with brute strength, but the young man remains focused, ready to evade or counter the powerful attack. Seizing the moment, the young man dodges swiftly as the orc swings its club again, the impact sending shockwaves through the earth, forcing him to leap back to avoid being crushed. The young man swings his makeshift axe with all his might, striking the orc's back with a powerful blow that sends splinters flying. His face tense with effort and determination. Panic rises as he realizes his only weapon has broken, leaving him defenseless against the towering orc advancing swiftly toward him. The orc collapses heavily onto the ground, but the young man remains alert, eyes wide as he watches the creature's sudden movement. Confused, he crouches near the fallen orc, questioning if the single strike was enough to kill it. But the orc's body twitches faintly, its mouth opening weakly as it struggles to breathe. He concludes the deep wound has immobilized the beast, preventing it from moving despite still being alive. Reflecting on the situation, the young man acknowledges his skill in poison resistance allows him to eat rotten meat safely, and since he took the orc's life, he feels compelled to make the most of it. He begins preparing the meat, lamenting the lack of water to improve the process but accepting he has no other choice. The young man, bloodied and weary, hoists the large orc carcass onto his back, deciding to carry it back to base rather than disassemble it here. Despite its size, he finds the weight more manageable than expected. He wipes sweat from his brow, surveying the large chunks of orc meat he has cut, reflecting on how the creature's size allowed him to gather a substantial amount despite the time-consuming process. He begins hanging the meat to dry, planning to leave some fresh for immediate use and dry the rest for later. The young man approaches a muddy water source cautiously, aware that his body reeks of blood and he must avoid further contamination. He longs to eat the meat soon but knows he must clean himself first, while the fire crackles beneath the slowly roasting meat skewered above. Sitting by the fire, he contemplates the taboo of eating orc meat but dismisses it given his desperate situation. The fresh scent of the meat contrasts with the rotten smell he endured before, yet the taste remains a problem, causing him to grimace as he takes another reluctant bite. The young man reflects on the orc's thick hair and skin, recalling how he dismantled the creature with his own hands. Inside the fat mass, he notes armor-like muscle, and despite using only a wooden stick, he crushed the orc's head and carried it back to the cave. He lies back on the ground, contemplating that until now, it would have been impossible to deliver a fatal blow to an orc with a single strike. Resting on the ground, he admits to having already eaten the meat saved for the next day. He tosses aside the wooden stick and decides to abandon plans for other preparation methods. Lying back with his hands behind his head, exhausted but contemplative, the young man marvels at the meat's juicy texture and sweet aroma, feeling as if the flavor has reached his brain directly. He praises the dish as incredibly delicious, while an image of the orc lingers, emphasizing the excellence of the meal. Considering his recent physical strength increase, he wonders if it stems from the ritual's blessings. Despite his blessing being that of a farmer, he feels the enhancement might be excessive and questions if his newfound strength is because he was defeated by Klaus, imagining a silhouette of Klaus standing over him with a sword. The young man reflects on how his muscles grow stronger after being broken and recovering, wondering if this phenomenon happened to him, and feels he might be becoming too strong all at once. He considers it fortunate that he was able to defeat the orc easily by himself, lying back near the fire as night falls and the forest stretches out around him. Dawn breaks over the rocky landscape where he has made camp, and he begins his daily routine by resting on a bed of leaves before swinging a large wooden sword with focused determination. Nearby, pieces of food are laid out, drying and prepared carefully, while rain falls gently around the camp. He walks through the forest carrying a heavy load of meat over his shoulder, pausing to gaze at the sunrise from a hilltop, then returns to his camp where smoke rises from a small fire, signaling his continued survival and efforts. After a month of persistence, he stands resolute beside a rock wall covered in marks from his knife, having finally eaten all the orc meat he once would have discarded. He acknowledges the pain of having nothing to eat and the value of every morsel, determined not to waste the meat of the monster he killed for sustenance. Emerging from a cave, the young man reflects on having consumed all the orc meat, realizing survival on just the forest's meager plants will be difficult. He considers staying in the Poisha forest a little longer but plans to leave for a city once things calm down. His current focus is to live and train to grow stronger. Determined, he vows to surprise his father and Klaus, picturing them both with confident expressions behind him. The scene shifts to a quiet forest with a discarded, tattered coat hanging from a tree and a calm river flowing nearby. The young man bathes in the river, exhaling with relief as he immerses himself in the water. He feels grateful for returning to this place, recalling how he's been drinking rainwater and muddy water for a month without clean water. The simple act of tasting clean water again stirs deep emotion within him. Standing before his worn clothes hanging on a tree, he admits he cannot leave the forest wearing them. He decides to tie a leather bag made from orc skin around his waist, considering it better than appearing as an exhibitionist. With the bag in hand, he prepares to move forward. Night falls over a dense forest as the chapter titled The Realzad City begins. Transitioning to a lone figure walking through the trees under a moonlit sky, dawn breaks, revealing a young man standing before an impressive cityscape, his expression filled with awe as he utters, "This is..." The bustling streets of Realzad unfold, crowded with people, carriages, and merchants. The young man reflects on the city's prosperity and its proximity to the royal capital Meldrake. Noting it as a good place to hide, far from his previous home, he contemplates the city's vibrancy and the strategic advantage it offers. A grand palace looms in the background as he considers Klaus, who has likely been summoned to the royal capital after receiving the grace of the Holy Sword. The young man plans to use Realzad as a base to observe Klaus while ensuring his own safety, his gaze sharp and determined amidst the crowd's curious stares. Standing out in tattered clothes, he feels conspicuous but is relieved the city's inspection was routine, allowing him entry without weapons. He acknowledges his immediate needs: food, shelter, and money, holding a few coins in his hand as he resolves to find a place to stay and acquire weapons, aware that survival here requires careful planning. The young man enters a props shop named Gold Bone, where a polite attendant offers to guide him to the appraiser's room, inviting him to sell items. He plans to sell the things he stole when he ran away from home, hoping the large company will prevent him from being ripped off. As the attendant announces a customer, the young man faces a scrutinizing older man with a monocle who inspects him closely. The older man greets him with a wary welcome, causing the young man to remain silent. The young man exits the shop, frustrated and muttering to himself. Realizing he chose the wrong store, he recalls the harsh words from the older man who questioned why such a customer was allowed in and doubted the value of his items, making it clear that his appearance made him untrustworthy. He accepts the difficulty of being trusted while dressed like this. A hooded figure watches silently from a shadowed corner in a rundown part of the city, the scene shifting to reveal the dilapidated streets with tattered tents and worn buildings. The young man surveys the area, noting how hard it is to believe this is still the same city he knew. He observes the market stalls, recognizing the goods sold at open stalls but finding the tents mysterious and their contents unknown. As he walks through the crowded market, the young man contemplates how rude it would be to peek inside the tents, wishing the vendors would at least put up signboards. Suddenly, a cloaked figure gently grabs his arm, catching his attention and causing him to turn around with a questioning look. The young man is caught off guard when a cloaked figure suddenly grabs his arm and asks if he is lost. The figure, hooded and mysterious, silently pulls a small, stitched pouch from their cloak and swiftly throws it toward him. The pouch explodes upon impact, shattering near the young man's face and startling him as he instinctively recoils from the sudden blast. Rubbing his face in pain, he demands to know what the cloaked figure is doing. But before he can react further, he notices his leather bag is missing. Frustrated, he curses as he realizes the thief has stolen his stolen goods. He quickly gives chase through the crowded market, shouting that the cloaked figure has taken his belongings. The crowd parts as he pursues the figure, who darts ahead, disappearing among the tents and people, while the young man's determined gaze sharpens as he spots her fleeing. The cloaked figure swiftly darts through the crowded streets, expertly weaving into the throng as the young man struggles to keep up. Noting how accustomed she seems to disappearing into the crowd, his frustration grows as he realizes her skill at evading capture. The young man calls out, scolding her for taking advantage of others' kindness, his expression a mix of anger and concern, while the cloaked figure looks back with a surprised and slightly embarrassed expression. He grabs her cloak firmly, warning her not to shout or he'll resort to force, while she struggles, shouting to be released. As she removes her hood, her youthful face is revealed, surprising him with how close in age they appear, dispelling his initial assumption that she was a child. Kneeling on the ground, the girl covers her mouth, tears welling up as he questions why she stole from him. She hesitates, feeling guilty, but remains silent, fearing punishment if she speaks. He sternly demands an answer, threatening to beat her if she refuses, while she sobs quietly, caught between fear and remorse. The young woman insists that stealing has no reason beyond mere survival, asking him not to question her further. He doubts her claim, wondering why she doesn't target wealthier victims if she's so skilled, suspecting either deceit or foolishness. He questions her about having parents, weapons, and accomplices. Watching her reactions closely, she laughs nervously, hesitates, and finally denies having any, but her panicked expression betrays her lie. He warns her to stop lying and tell the truth, threatening to hand her over to the soldiers. She pleads desperately, revealing she has one accomplice living with her in an abandoned building, confirming the partner is also a thief. Gently patting her head, he asks if the accomplice is nearby, and she tearfully confirms. He reasons that reaching that place would mean safety for her. Suddenly, worry grips him as he sits alone in the empty building, anxiously wondering why she is late and fearing she might have been caught. The young man, gripping his sword tightly, curses loudly in frustration as he admits defeat. Realizing he has been caught, beside him, the girl in a cloak looks sheepish, her hood pulled back to reveal her worried expression as the man behind her stands silently, watching. The young man angrily questions why she brought a certain person along, pointing out that he was already caught. The girl nervously explains she was forced to bring him or face harm. The silent man watches with a disapproving look, while the young man assumes the captured individual has some martial arts knowledge but poor balance. Confident he can easily defeat him, the girl, panicked, demands the young man drop his weapon, warning him not to attack or she won't hold back. The young man demands to know what they want, insisting they have no money to give. The silent man calmly states he came only to warn them, threatening harsher consequences if they try to steal from him again. The girl and the young man exchange surprised looks, the young man, rubbing his head, says he won't ask for money. While the silent man dismissively comments that a warning seems wasteful, the girl falls backward with a small ouch. As the young man steadies her, the silent man requests information in exchange for his warning. The young man and the girl listen as he explains he just arrived in the city and is unfamiliar with it. Asking for directions back to the central area, the young man agrees without hesitation. Knowing the importance of gaining knowledge about the city, the girl, surprised, calls the young man the direct culprit, while he looks thoughtfully ahead, realizing how crucial this information is. The young man opens the door cautiously, asking for their names, but the boy immediately refuses to reveal them. He exclaims in shock that their names have been leaked, startled by the young man's knowledge of their identities as Hesta and Rarf. The young man firmly states he has no intention of being friendly with them, while the boy reluctantly calms down. The trio stands outside a building marked with a sign, the young man expressing gratitude for their help despite their apparent displeasure. The boy crosses his arms, noting their lack of enthusiasm, while the young man insists that helping doesn't change anything regardless of their feelings. The boy urges the young man to wait, pointing out that the most important place hasn't been introduced yet. He asks where they sell stolen goods, explaining it's at a pawn shop run by an acquaintance. The young man questions why he cares, and the boy confirms the existence of shops that buy stolen items. The young man then asks the other two to show him the way there, his expression serious. The young man assures them he has no bad intentions and simply wants to sell stolen goods. The boy reacts with surprise, accusing him of being a thief as well and daring him to scold them. The young man admits he only stole once, taking his father's belongings, but the boy insists that stealing is stealing, regardless of whose property it is, and that the young man is no different from them. The young man assures them he will overlook their theft if they guide him, but warns he won't forgive anyone stealing from his belongings. He doesn't care if they continue stealing from others. As long as they show him the way, the girl and boy exchange a silent glance. Then the young man promises not to cause trouble or report them to the guards if they lead him. They confirm the place they're heading to is the last stop. The trio arrives at a building with ornate doors, entering a room filled with shelves of various items. The young man looks around cautiously as the girl and boy follow behind. A voice from within the room calls out, recognizing the two by name. An older man with a calm demeanor questions the presence of a stranger, curious about the situation. The girl explains the stranger is someone they just met who seems interested in selling something, though they are unsure if the man will buy it. The older man contemplates the situation silently before accepting it. The older man asks the young man for his name, who responds with hesitation before introducing himself as Rugence. The older man smiles warmly, complimenting the name and greeting him politely, signaling the beginning of their interaction. Various valuable items including a pocket watch, a necklace, a ring, and earrings are laid out for appraisal. An older man with glasses examines the necklace carefully, assuring that he will appraise the items while the young man is invited to browse the shop. The young man inspects several swords on display, then walks through aisles of shelves filled with books, noting that although the items look good, his budget of 5 gold coins is insufficient to buy them. The young man picks up a rare ancient book titled The Memoirs of Botanist Otto, admitting he has never heard of the author and finds it uninteresting. Yet he cannot help but pay attention. He considers the book's high price and wonders what makes it special, while the girl beside him watches quietly. Despite the steep cost of 3 gold coins, he contemplates buying it if it were cheaper. The girl asks if he can read the characters on the book, and he confirms he has been taught since childhood. She seems hesitant, trailing off as he remains silent, puzzled by her reaction. Suddenly, the older man calls out that he has finished the appraisal, prompting the young man to turn toward him. The older man offers to buy all the jewelry if the price is acceptable, starting with the ring priced at 4 silver coins and the earrings at 2 silver coins. The young man is shocked when the necklace is priced at 3 gold coins, reacting with surprise as the girl and boy stand nearby, observing the exchange. The older man explains the sapphire necklace is small but valuable, priced at 3 gold coins, a rare buying price offered only once every few years. The boy warns the other not to eavesdrop, while the man insists on negotiating without interference. The older man then presents a pocket watch, priced at 1 gold coin. The young man examines the pocket watch, surprised that it's worth only 1 gold coin despite how much his father treasures it. He decides to sell everything except the watch, and the older man agrees to the plan. Coins are placed on the counter as payment, with the older man noting the stolen goods require a lower price than their true value. He reassures them that the arrangement benefits both parties. When asked if there's anything else to sell, the young man hesitates but then mentions one item he noticed. The older man reveals the book he's interested in, explaining that few people pay attention to it. He sets a price due to the intriguing content, despite it being years since he last touched it. The young man wonders if the author achieved something significant, and the older man praises the book as a literary masterpiece if understood by a knowledgeable person. Rujins admits the book is beyond his current budget but hopes to buy it next time if it remains available. The older man, seated behind the counter, expresses intrigue about the book and offers a deal allowing Rujins to take it now and pay later, trusting he will return with the money. The young man hesitates, feeling awkward about selling stolen goods, but the older man reassures him that such an offer is rare. He explains the book hasn't sold for years but promises it will still yield a good profit whenever Rujins pays for it. The older man presses Rujins to decide if he will buy the book, warning that if payment is not made, he will collect the money from Rarf. Rujins reacts with surprise and protests he cannot pay. While Rarf loudly refuses to cover the cost himself, the older man chuckles at the exchange. Outside, Rujins thanks the girl and boy for their help, acknowledging he earned more money than expected. The boy offers to treat him to a meal since he didn't eat earlier. But the girl points out they haven't earned any money today and suggests it would be better if someone invited them to eat instead of constantly searching for things to sell. The young man insists that the older man should treat them since they have no money, while the boy questions if it's too suspicious to accept kindness from those who tried to steal. The young man explains it's just a gesture of gratitude for being introduced to a good place. He reflects quietly that even though he has little, having someone to talk to after living alone in the forest for a month makes him feel comfortable. While the girl listens attentively, the night sky stretches above them. As the moment settles, inside a lively tavern, the trio sits together amid bustling patrons. Waiters carry drinks and food, and plates of various dishes are set before them. The young man gestures as he talks, the boy listens, and the girl sits quietly, all surrounded by the warm, busy atmosphere. The young man devours his meal with surprising speed, leaving a growing stack of empty bowls. The boy and girl watch him with mild surprise. He admits that during his time in the forest, he survived on unseasoned orc meat, which the girl quickly suggests they not mention again. The boy compliments the taste of the food, noting it seems better than before despite looking the same. The young man recounts how he ate anything he could find to avoid starving, even drinking muddy water. While the boy expresses admiration for surviving a month in the forest without supplies, he explains that eating poisonous plants would have been fatal, but thanks to his skill called toxic resistance, he was able to endure. The boy reacts with disbelief at how casually the young man mentions such a skill, who responds that whether he has it or not doesn't change much. The conversation carries a mix of awe and quiet humility. The young man admits he knows others with the toxic resistance skill, though not all poisons are ineffective on them. Some only cause milder symptoms. He reflects on how since meeting the boy, he's noticed how easygoing he is. The boy listens thoughtfully as the young man explains he ate everything suspicious without harm, surprising the girl, who suddenly realizes this is why his aloe ball attack didn't affect him. The girl questions the young man about the aloe ball, and he confirms it flew straight into his eyes. The black-haired youth warns about the danger of such items, explaining the aloe ball contains a strong anesthetic that would immobilize most people for a day. The young man reveals that even this doesn't work on him anymore, suggesting his skill has evolved from toxic resistance to toxic nullification, though he rarely needs to use it. Under the night sky, the black-haired youth asks the young man about his future plans. He states his intention to become an adventurer, confident he can earn enough daily by using his swordsmanship skills. The boy comments that wanderers often become adventurers or criminals. The black-haired youth then questions the boy and girl about their own futures. Wondering if they plan to keep stealing to survive, the two walk away silently, while he watches them with concern. The boy calmly explains they lack the strength to become adventurers and only have their tainted hands from stealing. The young man accepts this as his plan but admits it might be harsh to say. The black-haired youth advises them that if someone else caught them, they'd already be in prison, urging them to find another way to live. The scene ends with the three of them standing apart, the night settling around them. The Adventurers Guild stands prominently under a bright sky, surrounded by a bustling town. Inside, several people examine a bulletin board while others approach a counter where a young woman in a formal uniform greets a newcomer. She cheerfully explains that the registration fee to become an adventurer is 1 silver coin, which the young man promptly hands over. The woman instructs him to state his name and age for magical registration of his personal information. He gives his name simply as Chris and his age as 16. A glowing orb floats between them as the registration completes, and she hands him a card, explaining it serves as identification, tracks quest information, and shows his rank within the guild. She asks if he has any questions. Curious, he inquires about the rank system. She explains that adventurers start at the rookie level and can only accept beginner quests initially. As their quest completion rate rises, so does their rank, allowing them to take on more difficult tasks. The ranks progress from bronze, silver, gold, platinum, mithril to diamond, with rare higher ranks like orichalcum and hyricane being uncommon. She notes that rank depends on skills, professions, and quest completion quantity. When asked about the abilities required for each rank, she outlines that rookies need all stats at 10, with bronze at 20 and silver at 40, doubling each rank thereafter. She rambles extensively about the details, growing flustered and overwhelmed by the technicalities. The young man calmly assures her he has no further questions for now, while she nervously asks if he has any other inquiries, her expression showing a mix of embarrassment and relief. A voice wishes the young man good luck with his adventurer work as he thanks them quietly. The scene shifts to a dense forest where a goblin lurks, clutching a club, while a notice details a goblin extermination quest, paying 2 copper coins per goblin and requiring the left ear as proof. The young man recalls his failure against an orc previously but vows to land a decisive blow this time. He grips his sword tightly, preparing for battle as the goblin approaches. With swift precision, he swings his sword, narrowly missing the goblin's attack, his eyes wide with focus and determination. After the strike, the young man watches the goblin fall silently, noting something strange about the encounter as he surveys the quiet aftermath in the tall grass. The young man reflects on his previous battle with the orc, recalling a strange feeling during the fight. Now, wielding a proper sword, he finds it almost absurd how easily he cut the orc in half without any emotion. Standing alone in the forest, he contemplates this change, admitting he doesn't understand why but senses he has gained some extraordinary power. After becoming an adventurer, he spent the next 2 months hunting only goblins, the forest battle scenes fading into the quiet town at dawn. Life remained mostly unchanged since arriving in the city, except for one thing. The young man enters a modest home, yawning as morning light fills the room. A cheerful young woman greets him warmly, announcing that breakfast is ready. Their brief exchange hints at a settled daily routine amidst the quiet morning. The young man explains that about a month ago, 2 thieves who had likely reached their limit sought him out. Asking to live together, he agreed, wanting to keep expenses low, and they found a cheap hostel to share a room. Both have since become adventurers, and his rank recently rose from rookie to bronze. He feels no trouble obtaining food, clothing, or shelter, even managing to save 3 gold coins. As they prepare to leave, one thief asks him to close the door behind them. The young man scratches his head in mild embarrassment but agrees. This marks the beginning of his life living alongside the 2 thieves, a new chapter unfolding quietly. The young man resolves to test a theory by visiting Peisha Forest the next day, studying a book titled The Memoirs of Botanist Otto, which details discoveries of useful effects from new plant species and clearly records place names and titles. Among the notes, the most intriguing are those about unknown plants with incurable toxins. He reflects on the existence of poisonous plants with strong toxic effects yet to be understood, then considers that among the plants he has eaten in the forest, one might have the ability to enhance the body, sparking hope that he could become stronger. Inside a grand church, sunlight streams through stained glass as he recalls hearing that the church can inscribe statuses on adventurer cards. He wants to verify changes in his abilities before and after consuming certain plants but cannot do it himself. And since it costs 1 gold coin to confirm ability changes, he prepares to proceed. Approaching a priest, he politely requests to have his abilities checked. The priest greets him warmly and instructs him to wait in the next room, acknowledging his status as an adventurer, as the young man thanks him and prepares for the assessment. The young man contemplates how testing his abilities himself would save him the cost of 1 gold coin. A priest appears, apologizing for the wait, and introduces himself as Graham, the parish priest of the church, warmly welcoming the adventurer. The young man requests only to have his abilities checked, not to confess, and offers 1 gold coin and his adventurer's card. The priest accepts and produces a glowing orb, then excuses himself to attend a holy ceremony, leaving the card behind. The adventurer examines his card, noting his compatible profession as a farmer and his stats. Physical strength at 10+6, muscle strength 5+8, endurance 7+2, magic power 1, and agility 4. He reflects that these numbers are mostly single digits, far below rookie level, and though the card doesn't mention swordsmanship, it accurately represents his current physical abilities. He focuses on the numbers in parentheses, realizing they likely represent the increase in his abilities after eating strange plants. He notices his special skill is not toxic resistance, but poison nullification, wondering if the old parish priest might have been mistaken about his skill. The young man shoulders a large pack filled with supplies, preparing to leave as night falls over the quiet town. A young woman sitting on a bed rubs her eye sleepily, asking where he is going, while he pauses briefly by the door, responding with a hesitant question mark. Apologizing for waking her, he explains he has business to attend to and won't return for a while, assuring her that the rent is already paid during his absence. She accepts this calmly, promising to inform Rarf, as the scene fades into a starry night sky. Dawn breaks over a mountain range as the young man treks through the forest, his heavy pack weighing on him. He reflects on how poison nullification saved his life when he lacked proper food and drink, considering his forest journey a valuable experience despite the hardships. Kneeling beside a small insect, he notes it does not reproduce, then carefully places a mat on the ground before walking deeper into the woods. He finally picks a flowering plant, plucking it gently from its stem with a focused expression. The young man sits quietly in the forest, studying a book intently as he takes notes. He recalls gathering information over the past 2 months from shops and healing guilds, realizing that many plants sold in Realzad are also found here. Determined to verify his findings, he decides to focus solely on collecting unknown plant species, though his memory of what he ate before is vague, clouded by his focus on survival. He tastes mushrooms he once ate, recalling their flavor as not too bad but with a sour aftertaste and dry sensation on his tongue, despite the unpleasantness. He finds them better than the bitter plants he endured. Sitting by a fire, he grimaces at the lingering sourness, acknowledging the discomfort but pushing through. Next, he samples an insect-eating plant, grimacing as the sour, rotten taste overwhelms him. He wonders if the flavor comes from an insect inside that wasn't fully digested, despite the nausea. He forces himself to continue, determined not to give up. Exhausted and queasy, he admits the plant is unsuitable for eating, but remains resolute in his goal to collect 30 poisonous plant species. Holding a leafy branch, he sits thoughtfully in the forest, surrounded by the plants he's gathered, ready to press on with his mission. The young man reflects on his progress, noting that within a week he safely gathered 30 poisonous plants. Though initially worried, he finds the forest peaceful and free of magical beasts, promising himself to return with a more relaxed mindset next time. Despite having to endure eating terrible plants for every meal, he returns to the city as dawn breaks, walking through its grand streets with his heavy pack. He apologizes to the priest for the repeated visit, confirming he is the one who recently came for an ability check. The priest reassures him that only a few days have passed, so no significant changes are expected, but agrees to perform the assessment and returns the adventurer's card. Examining the updated card, the young man realizes his physical strength and endurance have each increased by 1 point, feeling a surge of excitement at the small but meaningful improvement. The young man stands solemnly in a church, reflecting that among the plants he gathered in the forest, some have the power to increase abilities. He contemplates the importance of knowing which plants can enhance strength. Holding his adventurer card tightly, he resolves that any method is acceptable to gain more power, clenching his fist with determination to do whatever it takes to grow stronger. A young man shouts angrily, demanding to know why the other disappeared for an entire week without any notice. The other, holding skewered food, responds quietly that he asked a girl named Hesta to inform him. The first man insists he should have been told directly, while the girl timidly apologizes. The angry youth presses further, questioning where the other went and if he intends to leave their lodging. The quieter man offers him a portion of the skewered food, trying to calm the situation. The girl watches quietly as the first man, now eating, demands to know where he actually went, while the other thinks that if he doesn't explain, the questions will continue. The conversation turns serious as the quieter man explains he had to hide in the forest for a week because something was bothering him. The angry youth listens intently. Then the mood shifts to silence as the girl and the quieter man exchange glances, both feeling useless. The angry youth laments their difficult living situation, detailing the costs of rent, food, and the need to hunt goblins daily just to get by. The quieter man encourages him to keep trying despite the hardships. When the first suggests they might give up, the other firmly rejects the idea, gripping his skewer tightly. The young man firmly refuses to form a party, explaining he lacks spare money despite the other's insistence and accusations that he didn't work for a week. The girl calls out his name in surprise, while he remains resolute, stating his current funds come solely from his hard work. He quietly tells them to return the food if his invitations cause trouble. Reflecting inwardly that he understands their feelings but cannot afford to help anyone, the other apologizes, and the mood softens as they sit together, with the young man considering if there is any exploitable value in their situation. The young man questions the others about their compatible professions and skills, doubting anyone would reveal their weaknesses. The girl nervously answers that she is a wizard with a magic healing skill, prompting a surprised reaction from the others. He reassures them that if he wanted to kill them, he would have done so long ago, and the girl feels comfortable sharing since it's with him. The girl explains her compatible profession and skill once more, holding a skewer as the other man reacts angrily for revealing this information. The young man remains calm, accepting the situation while the other protests, highlighting the tension and trust dynamics within the group. Magic is notoriously difficult to manipulate, requiring study at a magic school or self-teaching through grimoires. Only the highest nobles or those granted top-level magic professions can attend these schools, While grimoires are costly and written in ancient scripts, the wizard profession, though combat-related, is the most unconventional and peculiar among them. A young girl admits she started stealing to afford magic grimoires, hoping to become a wizard despite her current unlucky farmer profession. The young man acknowledges her ambition and recalls their first meeting when she was asked if she could read a mysterious book. Nervously, the girl requests the young man to teach her how to read if she manages to obtain a magic grimoire. He agrees thoughtfully, considering that mastering magic could elevate her wizard profession to rival high-level combat roles, hinting that her future might change. The girl brightens with gratitude, expressing heartfelt thanks, while the young man and another youth watch quietly, touched by her earnestness and hopeful determination. The young man demands to know about Rarf, but the other refuses to reveal anything. The girl quietly explains that Rarf is a holy knight, with skills like Divine Strike, Divine Guardian, and Breath of the Protector. The young man reacts with surprise and embarrassment at the sudden disclosure. An imposing figure clad in shining armor is shown, symbolizing the holy knight profession, described as a high-ranking combat role that allows joining the royal guard while still being able to adventure. The girl admits that Rarf was seriously injured as a child, damaging his knee so badly he still struggles to move properly. The young man acknowledges this, blaming the girl for revealing too much. They reflect on their bad luck, noting that they are the only combatants in their party who keep tripping over goblins. The young man asks if Rarf's knee could heal and fix everything, but the answer is no. Village doctors said it was untreatable. He insists he never gave up, searching for different doctors, but ultimately there was no cure. The two sit together in silence, contemplating the harsh reality. The young man recalls their harsh beginnings as abandoned children with no money or status, struggling to get by. He admits he can't say how long it will last, but for now, both the girl and the other youth have potential. He decides to form a party with the two of them. The girl beams with hope while the young man reflects on his own past, abandoned by family due to the blessing ceremony, yet now judging others by its results. Despite this, he admits he doesn't feel ready to team up as they are now, leaving the other youth confused. The young man explains there are things he must do first and insists they need to gain enough skill to hunt goblins easily before forming a party. The other youth protests, frustrated that they can't hunt goblins properly now, but the young man insists that forming a party prematurely is putting the cart before the horse. Both the girl and the other youth acknowledge his point, though hesitantly. Suddenly, the girl stands determined, her expression fierce and resolute, catching the young man's startled attention as he looks toward her with surprise. The young man declares the decision has been made, prompting a surprised reaction from the boy. Outside, people gather around a building as the girl confidently states her desire to take on a quest. Inside, she is offered the chance to try bronze-level quests now available to her. The girl explains the variety of bronze-level quests, asking what kind the young man prefers. He requests just a few, and she pulls out several quest papers for him to consider, flipping through them thoughtfully. The quests are revealed as extermination tasks targeting various creatures. Lost cattle birds, baby lizards, bubble wisps in an abandoned village, and hydro slimes near a river. The young man questions why some quests specify locations while others do not, and learns that killing just one target can complete these exterminations. The girl clarifies that quests without designated locations require gathering materials from specific monsters, while those with locations involve exterminating harmful creatures in set areas. She explains that although these quests take more time and effort, their rewards can be greater. As the young man listens intently, the young man asks which quest offers the highest reward, and the girl explains that exterminating lost cattle birds yields the most gold. She details that the quest comes from a meat processing shop and requires bringing back the entire body, with rewards ranging from 1 to 3 gold coins depending on the condition and size. Surprised, he reacts to the possibility of earning 3 gold coins. She then mentions that hydro slimes and bubble wisps both offer a lower reward of 4 silver coins. He contemplates the rewards, noting that even the lowest-paying quest demands defeating a single target equivalent to 20 goblins. He acknowledges that bronze-level quests indeed offer higher rewards but wonders why the Lost Cattle Birds quest commands such a high price. A warning is given that if hunting takes too long, the money might run out first. The scene closes with him holding a quest paper, pondering which quest to choose. A quiet, winding path leads into a dense forest as the chapter title Mission Conquest appears, followed by a close-up of fluttering butterflies and a young man watching them from the shadows of a tree. The young man steps forward cautiously, spotting a large, grotesque hydro slime oozing on the ground. He grimaces in disgust as the creature writhes, clearly repulsed by its foul appearance. He reflects on his choice of mission, admitting it might be harder than expected, knowing his weapons will be tainted by the slime stench and may need to be discarded. He sizes up the slime, noting its height matches his own and that its dark core is its weak point. but he must be careful since its front is unknown. With determination, he charges forward, aiming a decisive strike at the slime's core, hoping to finish the battle quickly and efficiently. The young man launches a fierce attack on the grotesque Hydro slime, aiming for its core, but his strike fails to defeat the creature. Frustration flashes across his face as he prepares to strike again with renewed determination. With a powerful leap, he descends upon the slime, his sword slicing through its body, shattering the creature into pieces with a decisive blow. Covered in slime, he staggers back, exhausted and disgusted by the ordeal. Kneeling on the ground, he vows never to accept such a mission again, gripping his sword tightly as he catches his breath. Reflecting on the past month, he recalls how he avoided further difficulties by completing bronze-ranked missions successfully. His afternoons are spent reporting and preparing for the next day, while the rest of his time is devoted to practicing swordsmanship and learning about plants at the healing guild and herb shops. Despite relentless work, he is surprised by how much he has earned, having saved up 20 gold coins through daily earnings of at least 4 silver coins. The young man arrives at a shop filled with shelves of books, greeted warmly by an elderly shopkeeper who asks if he's there to see weapons today. He clarifies that he's come to pay for a book, assuring the shopkeeper he has enough money to cover it. Reflecting on how grateful he is to Rugence for selling him the book, he recalls that without it, he wouldn't have realized the potential of certain poisonous plants. The shopkeeper agrees to the sale, and they exchange thanks as the young man pays. The young man inquires if the shop sells necromancy scrolls, prompting the shopkeeper to retrieve a set from a drawer. Though a bit old, the scrolls are genuine necromancy scrolls, which the shopkeeper shows him carefully. Holding one scroll, the young man asks why he didn't suggest Hesta pay later for it. The shopkeeper explains that Hesta specifically asked him to keep the scroll and not sell it, fearing she'd run off if given the chance. The young man comments on the lack of trust between them despite their long acquaintance, while the shopkeeper notes it's precisely because they've known each other so long. The young man is shocked to learn the book costs 2 platinum coins, realizing how expensive it truly is since 1 platinum coin equals 10 gold coins. Despite hearing it was pricey, he spent an entire day debating whether to buy it, noting no one else in the alleys dares to purchase it. The shopkeeper offers to let him pay later in full because of who he is, though the young man feels he should have asked for money in advance due to the cost. He reflects that the necromancy scroll is meant for Hesta to learn magic, which she currently cannot use, making her a valuable asset if she gains even a little skill. Joining forces with them would benefit him as well. He declines the offer to buy on credit, unwilling to go into debt for Hesta, despite the shopkeeper's disappointment. The shopkeeper assures him he can come back anytime if he changes his mind, and the young man thanks him before leaving. Outside, leaves flutter in the wind, setting a quiet, contemplative mood. Back home, he examines the poisonous plants he gathered, dried, and partially ate, noting the more he dries them, the more bitter they become. Exhausted, he admits he needs to learn more about how to properly consume these plants as the sun sets over the village. The young man reflects on his recent endurance and physical strength improvements, hoping the remaining poisonous plants won't enhance his abilities unevenly. He worries the church might misunderstand his intentions if they don't know what he's doing. Inside the grand church, he apologizes for bothering the priest again with another ability check, but insists he won't complain even if his abilities remain unchanged. The priest acknowledges and begins the process. The priest reassures him that even if abilities didn't change, his determination surely did not fail. The young man, tired of repeated reassurances, asks him not to repeat the same words. The priest apologizes for his persistence and politely excuses himself. Reviewing his status, the young man notes his endurance and muscle strength increased by 1 on the left side, with no change on the right, likely due to his own efforts hunting demons. He contemplates how many demons he has defeated in a month, realizing his growth matches the effort of eating the plants. He realizes that among the poisonous plants, some hold the power to make him stronger, but worries that drying them might render them ineffective. Determined, he plans to eat the remaining 15 types to confirm. Kneeling on the floor, the young man and a girl sit side by side, both appearing tense and focused in the quiet room. A figure in a cloak approaches the pair, asking what they are doing, while the young man turns to face him, gripping his cloak tightly. The girl quickly urges the young man to join their party, insisting they now have enough strength to easily defeat goblins, though he winces at her sudden outburst and tells her to be quiet. The young man reflects on how quickly things have progressed, noting that although they once returned home exhausted, they now spend their time relaxing. He thought the moment was near, but it arrived sooner than expected. The trio stands together as he expresses gratitude, and the girl enthusiastically thanks him. While the other responds with a shy thanks, he agrees to accompany them tomorrow to investigate further. Considering their ability to easily defeat goblins, he thinks forming a party with them would be beneficial. The girl offers grilled skewers she bought, which the young man gratefully accepts. Later, he studies a book by candlelight, focused on his preparations. He concludes that the 15 types of poisonous plants he ate today did not enhance his abilities and decides to disregard them in the future. Seeing it as a waste of effort, sitting at a table, he contemplates the cost of becoming stronger. When asked about a pile of dried grass, he explains it is fatal if eaten, causing the other to react with shock. The young man questions why such a thing was brought home, worried it might be sold for extra money, but is reassured it's not the case. He explains the dried grass is for himself, relying on his poison nullification skill. Though the other warns against intentionally eating poisonous dried grass, when asked if it tastes good, he admits it tastes terrible, causing the other to be scared by the revelation. The young man and the girl catch their breath, both weary from their journey, as a third figure approaches, limping and clutching his injured leg. Admitting he is the one slowing them down, the young man quietly reflects on why they left so early. The young man orders the injured companion to get on his back, dismissing his protests and slow pace, warning that if they don't work as a team, the party plan will be cancelled, causing the injured man to shiver nervously under the girl's intense stare. With determination, the young man commands the others to demonstrate how easily they can hunt goblins, prompting the injured man to agree reluctantly, while the girl encourages him to perform as he always does. Moving cautiously through the tall grass, the trio stalks their prey until the girl spots a goblin and signals the others to stop and take aim, preparing to engage the enemy silently. The girl swiftly strikes a goblin with her club, catching it off guard and causing it to twitch in pain. But the creature smirks menacingly, revealing a sinister intent as the young man watches with wide eyes. The girl dashes forward, pursued by 2 goblins laughing cruelly, while the young man moves to intercept, his gaze sharp and focused as one goblin lunges at him with claws extended. The young man deftly counters, stabbing a goblin through the back and sending it crashing to the ground, then turns to the girl, asking how their teamwork is performing. The girl cheerfully affirms their goblin hunting is effective despite some clumsiness, prompting the young man to reflect on their strategy. The girl lures the goblins to the injured companion, who cannot run, and then he finishes the fight. The young man decisively announces forming a party, causing the girl to cheer excitedly while the injured companion looks uneasy. She playfully scolds him for wanting to remain a rookie adventurer hunting goblins, while he insists he was joking and questions the need for a party when they can handle goblins alone. The young man entrusts Chris with responsibility, and the girl agrees, both counting on him as they prepare to part ways for the day. The injured companion protests, surprised that they just formed a party yet aren't hunting together. The trio returns to town, greeted warmly by the young man who welcomes them back. The injured companion happily shows off skewers they bought, while the girl excitedly announces their return to Chris. The young man reveals he also bought supplies, prompting the injured companion to complain they didn't need to buy anything more. As the girl and the injured companion react with surprise, the young man calmly places a coin on the table, hinting at a secret purchase beyond the skewers. A lavish spread of food is laid out, featuring Saikamanju's pork buns, sashimi from Marura, and seasoned rice from Maruha Diner, all dishes from famous restaurants the group has longed to try. The young woman and the injured companion react with wide-eyed amazement and excitement. The young man assures them they can enjoy the feast because they are a party now. Responding calmly to their disbelief, the trio shares a warm moment, eating together as the young man looks on with a subtle smile while the others enjoy the meal enthusiastically. The young man suddenly asks the injured companion what his goal is moving forward, prompting the others to listen intently. The injured companion is caught off guard, initially confused, while the young man presses for a clear purpose beyond just enjoying food and adventuring together. The injured companion admits he wants to become a mage and make money, but the young man questions if that personal goal means he might leave the party once successful. The young woman looks worried, and the injured companion struggles to explain, while the young man acknowledges the difficulty of the question, emphasizing the importance of clarity in their shared journey. The young man clenches his fists tightly, his expression darkening as he reveals his true goal: to get revenge on his younger brother. Sitting around a table, he adds that if possible, he wants to achieve this while remaining part of the party, leaving the others stunned and questioning his meaning, with one nervously asking if he intends to kill his brother. He confirms this coldly, while the injured companion reacts with shock and urges him to do it alone if that's the case, struggling to reconcile the fact that the target is his younger brother. The young man insists he cannot handle it alone, while the injured companion and the girl exchange worried glances, the former still hesitant but unable to deny the harsh reality. The young man's face hardens as he contemplates the situation. A sinister smile crosses his face as he admits his brother is nearly the strongest person, prompting the girl to ask why he wants to kill him. The scene shifts to a quiet night outside the building, Then back inside where the young man sets down a mug with a clatter, acknowledging that this is why he fled to the forest. The young man recalls a near-fatal moment when he tripped, narrowly escaping death at the hands of his brother Klaus. His expression darkens as he admits he can never forgive Klaus and fears being killed if found. The girl and the injured companion watch him with concern. The injured companion reflects on his own past, revealing his stepfather is gone but he once wanted to kill him. The girl shows understanding about seeking revenge even within family. While the injured companion firmly states he won't help with the killing, the young man calmly accepts this, saying just understanding his situation is enough. The injured companion accuses the young man of keeping dried grass at night to poison his brother, but the young man denies it, explaining he never intended to poison the sword god and wouldn't choose such a method. He then reveals he planned to share the truth after forming their party, prompting the injured companion to demand to know what the dried grass really is. The young man explains the dried grass is a poisonous herb that draws out hidden abilities, making the body stronger if eaten. Though only someone resistant to poison could discover its true power, the injured companion is amazed, having never heard of such a plant. The girl asks about their current goal, bringing the conversation back to their shared future. The young woman quietly states her goal to become a mage and be useful to both Ralph and the young man. Asking if that isn't good enough, the young man replies that if she is fine with it, then so is he. The young man then boldly declares his desire to become the strongest adventurer everyone acknowledges. His fist raised with shining determination, the young man reacts with a small, amused laugh. The young man smiles warmly, telling the other that his ambition suits him well. The other protests, embarrassed and flustered, insisting he is not being made fun of. The young man calmly explains that this means their goals will align. The other looks surprised and confused by this statement. The young man reveals that his younger brother Klaus is a prodigy destined to be celebrated as a heroic champion. Though his name is not yet widely known, he acknowledges Klaus's incredible abilities despite his hatred for him. The other contemplates this, realizing that his own goal might end up being to surpass the young man's brother as well. The young woman affirms that the young man seeks revenge against his younger brother, while Ralph desires the power to surpass him, and she will help both achieve their goals. The young man declares that the ultimate goal of their party is to surpass Klaus, the sword god, and asks if anyone objects. Both the young woman and the other respond firmly with no objections. The three companions raise their mugs in a quiet toast, each representing a unique and unlikely role. A holy knight barely able to walk properly, a mage who cannot use magic, and a farmer immune to poison. Their smiles are gentle but determined, symbolizing the strange bond that formed the weakest party through this unexpected connection. In the forest, two figures clad in cloaks stand among the trees, one holding a wooden stick while the other kneels with a sword. They praise the exceptional quality of their efforts, expressing satisfaction with the results. The standing figure beams with pride, while the other reflects thoughtfully on the impressive translation and fluid sound effects, acknowledging the great value of their work for a modest price.